18 years, United fans has been protesting against the Glazers. We're not going away until we're sold. We won't be ignored. We won't go away. This is just the beginning. This is just the start. Green and gold until we're sold. We are united all over the world. This is how we will play.
Ownership. You get a few idiots. I'm going back further since when I was a kid.
18 years we had it rough. Glazers, we had enough. Fucking hell.
Partly because people who are classed as fit and proper persons are allowed to take over football clubs. I don't believe that they are.
You won't have that.
Ah, fuck that shit.
If Sir Jim Rattcliffe, according to British media, is successful to take over Manchester United on 25% minority, we gotta ask the hard questions. Number one, what will life be under Sir Jim Rattcliffe's and Ineos ownership as for the global fan base experience? Number two, what would the football operation look like 3 years from now? Well, stick around, let's find out. Are you ready? Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. Welcome back to Mufc Realist TV. I'm here in the studio with no other than the gentleman to the left there, Mr. Paul White. How are you doing today, sir? It's been a hot minute since I spoke to you last time. How are you doing? You're looking shaved and nice and slick.
I know. I thought I'd make myself look beautiful today. No, doing well, mate. Doing well.
Oh, you missed
breaking news. Yeah, the beard.
Lipstick, yeah, a little bit like.
Yeah, a bit of breaking news today as well. So, lots to dig into.
Yes, people, we have a lot of things to unpack as a close shave as possible. People that have been following this podcast, Paul, we've done over almost 200 in 12 months about the GlazersOut movement. We're providing you guys with a voice of reasoning. We have brought in Paul White. We have brought in Swedish Rumble. We have looked at all possible angles, just providing an educational platform regarding the sales takeover process. And now I think that every Manchester United fan is fully educated. They understand what Class A, B shares. They understand what a bidding process is, what shadow bidding is. But the main purpose of this channel has always been one thing, Paul, and that is full sale only, GlazersOut. It's been 18 years of travesty of these leeches, milking us dry. And that's kind of been the main objective of this channel, to provide you with facts, provide you with our alternative views. And at the end of the day, the information that you receive is kind of your truth, because it's how you dissect it with your logic and reason, Paul. Having to say that, Paul, we do have some breaking news. Paul, the breaking news today just broke about 1 hour ago. I know you called me and
it's actually broken totally now. Remember when I said to you, 12 o'clock, official statement from Manchester United. Richard Arnold has decided to step down as chief executive of Manchester United club after 16 years with the club. They've released the official statement now. I did say 12 o'clock.
12 o'clock. On clockwork. 12 o'clock, breaking news. We are live covering this breaking news that key figure Richard Arnold, after 16 years, he's mates with the old guard, which is Woodward, which is Matt Judge, and all of them, is stepping down. And as per brilliant Sky News reporter Mark Killiam, that's kind of reporting this, that he will be replaced with an interim, which is Patrick Stewart. I mean, not that Patrick Stewart from Star Trek.
Oh, the
actor.
Yeah.
No,
he's our chief legal officer.
He's a chief legal officer, 100%. But Paul, I want to hear from you. With this breaking news, one can only assume that an imminent takeover is about to take place. I want to hear your thoughts and feelings regarding whoever is the bidder. We are coming to the end of the strategical review. Remember how the Glazers came out before Thanksgiving, before the 22nd, to say we're going to enter a strategic review. It's been 1 year in the making. There's been minority bidders involved bidding. There's been 92 holding Yasim, there's been Ineos, and now we're coming down to the feedback section where they're expected to get some feedback. But honestly to God, there's been some leaks coming out, and this is significant news that, either way, whoever takes over, they will always look at to replace them with their own people, the CEO, the director of football, the entire staff, basically, because, according to my opinion, Paul, it's been, when David Gill stepped down together with, I'm getting so emotional right now, Sir Alex Ferguson. It's been just bankers taking over. They don't understand football, and Glazers, it's kind of controversial to say they've never been involved. They've been always sitting in the back seat, leasing out, or having the brokers or some people run the club for them in a way. They don't really understand what football is all about. They don't even understand which team is playing who. Like, they've been coming to Old Trafford, and been asking the silly questions. Which one is ours? You know what I mean? So just want to pose the question to you, how significant is this? And, does it really matter? Could it be, anyone, or is it just like what British media is sort of assuming, that this is Ineos taking over?
Generally, you have to, if we take out who reported the thing and just based on the fact that he's leaving, that is a clear indication that there's going to be a takeover coming. That is a way for the club to show respect to Richard Arnold, for him to basically say stepping down. Sky have also reported he's actually handing over immediate control as well, so he's not actually working his interim period out. He's just basically stepping back. So that is clearly a decision that the club and him have both made to, basically say, look, your time's over, it's done. It is a very, very, especially in the situation we're in with a strategic review, that the announcement of a new owner is coming in. The problem is then you have to go on to where the news has come from. And the news came from Mark Killingham about, as you say, about an hour ago, a couple of hours ago, even now. He's the guy that broke the strategic review news. He's the guy that broke the Sir Jim 25% offer that could be accepted. He was the guy that said when Richard Arnold was stepping down, and in his tweet he goes, he's done two things. He goes, it's an imminent indication that Sir Jim is getting ready to come in, and it's a clear indication. So he's breaking the news of the CEO. I know people are hoping for Qatar, like myself, but it's a clear enough as any type of insider information you're going to get that this is going to speed up within the next week or so.
Yeah,
could still be a chance it's going to be Qatar, but honestly, there's
what?
Yeah, there's no news to support it.
Paul, I always said I keep my powder dry, because we've been spun dizzy throughout this 12 months period. And I'm just glad that it's coming to a conclusion. That's all we want. We want some clear communication. And if it's Ineos, what we do expect is, please explain your purpose. Please explain your manifesto. Communicate to the fan base so we know, because we are your consumers. We are your customers. People in the VR room, in the chat, thank you for making this far. I know some people are having their lunches. What we're going to do here together with Paul White is to have as close shave as possible. We're going to look at what does the future mean if it is Ineos with a 25%, from a fan perspective, from a global fan perspective, but can we actually bring United back to glory days again with 25%? What does that entitle if you take over the sporting operations? And what about the debt? There's so many questions that needs to be answered, and there's so many questions we need to ask as a fan base, right? We need to ask those difficult questions. So please, guys that just tune in, please don't forget to give us a little bit of a thumbs up. It's free. If you haven't subscribed as of yet, please subscribe and hit that notification button so you never miss one of our videos as well. So big up to all of you that come in. I want to sort of take this opportunity, Paul, to give a little bit of shout out to our community that is here. I can see Jamie Wayne is here. I can see Jolly Malmin is here. Everything about Carpi, Mr. Joare. I can't even please forgive me if I can't read your name. You're having a question here. I think we will come down to your questions, the Q&A at the end of the section as well. We will pause in between and we will cover your questions as we go, because we have so much to talk about today, Paul. George Best is here as well, saying good morning from New York, Brooklyn. We are such a global fan base. I'm sitting in Thailand at the moment, Paul. It is 7 hours ahead of UK. It's always a challenge, but you can manage the people in US and Australia. Tom Charlton is here saying good morning to you. RJ saying good morning as well. Good, big up to everyone. George Buzz, who cares, says morning beauties as well. Good morning to you all. And Patrick Stewart will replace him. It's not the Patrick Stewart from the actor, you know, from the Star Trek. So beam me up, Scotty. Anyway, let's kick on the show, guys. And we will come back to you guys later with the chat. So please come with your questions. There's no bad questions. There's only good questions. All right, Paul. Good evening, Dave Perry as well. And Nepal is in the house. We got Nepal as well. Happy Diwali to you as well, my friend. Jarvis Cocker is coming out late. They are cleaning the room from Brailsford, John Claude Blanc, and Mitchell. It is all about, you know, it was widely reported, Paul, that whoever comes in, they're going to give 100 days review. So anything from the footballing side has been good. Anything from the managers, the scouts, kind of questionable, to the analytics. But arguably to say that it's been 10 years where the football structure has fallen behind. You know, we've been surpassed by clubs like Newcastle, by Brighton, because, you know, everything from the CEO, from the board, from the owners, you know, the message has been clear. They had a sporting vision, and that goes all the way down to the mailroom and the dressing room, right? And if we don't catch up this time, we will be so far behind. So the rebuild would be, you know, triple, quadruple. So the time is now, Paul, right? So is this coming to big news to you, or would it always be the case, no matter who takes over, it's just total clean house above Eric Ten Hag?
It would be a total clean house in a situation. What's clearly happened is Arnold has obviously seen the writing on the wall. A couple of things I want to clear out about this, because maybe there's some people don't understand. At the moment, Arnold has stepped down. He's relinquishing all control that he has for the club at the moment, and Patrick Stewart will be taking over as an interim CEO. The indication why this is a clear sign that announcement by a takeover, you can say the word imminent, it can still be a week away, is because he is he's our legal counsel. He's basically there. He's there to sit in the CEO board and sign the legal documents to make sure everything goes on. He doesn't know anything about football. If this was generally Arnold stepping down in a capacity of, I don't want to do this job anymore, I want to move on, I'm looking for other things, you would see our chief financial officer, Cliff, second name, dyslexic brain, I'm sorry guys, Batty. Cliff, basically, he would take over as interim CEO, because he actually he deals with running in the football and in the football finances. It's generally them people that take over interim CEO. The fact that it's our legal counsel is he is there to make sure, basically, that the board now is going to do everything that is legally right to sign off on the strategic review and any possible takeover. Now, I will say to people, this could be announced in a week. It will be, I think it will be announced in a week. It could be announced in a week, but this deal will not actually be in place for another 6 to 8 weeks. There's regulatory things they have to go over. Once the deal is announced, you enter what in M&A terms they call a closing period. And that period is where you get the SEC recommendations. They do the background checks to see if this person can own the shares. And that 6 to 8 weeks, the Premier League will do the directors and owners test. This is all standard in any kind of business takeover. So there will be an announcement, and then there'll be the closing period. But there's nothing in that closing period that I think would scupper any deal. So if it goes into that announcement and closing period, it would happen. But as you say, footballing structure. CEO is part of that footballing structure. Your director of football is part of that footballing structure. And then the people that he employs under him are part of that. That needs a massive change in this club. Yeah. Doesn't matter if it's Qatar, doesn't matter if it's Sir Jim. It needs a massive change. And I think the two names that have been mentioned with Paul Mitchell and Paul Mitchell and Claude Blanc is two names I think anybody would want at United. Doesn't matter who the owner is. They're two fantastic names being mentioned.
Exactly. We want best in class. We want the best in class people. We want footballing brains to run the club. I mean, Jean-Paul Blanc is not a mug. Like, basically Jean-Paul Blanc was the one when Juventus got relegated. He was the one that did drastic changes to put him up to winning ways again, And Paul Mitchell, I mean, we've been linked to this doggy as well, like, at Crystal Palace, but he's not good enough, right? We want best in class director of football, right? And I'm going to come back to that question later on, because people are saying this is illogical, right? What Madhouse is saying. But we got a super chat coming in from Jeff Steele, all the way from Adelaide, Australia. What is he saying? Richard Arnold leaving is only good news for the club. Woohoo. Glazers out, Glazers out, Glazers out. 100%. And, I can agree with you that, Jeff Steele, that this needs to be changed, right? Because we are back on this hamster wheel. If we sack the manager, if the same establishment is sitting there still, we had pedigree CVs like Jose Mourinho, dealing with these clowns above. They don't understand football. Like, they've been overruled in terms of the transfer market. They placed a fake director of football in Richard, in John Murtaugh, that's been like overruling. That is a Glazer simp. At the end of the day, this is great news, right? If we can get rid of, those people that have been Glazer simps, right? That's a step towards direction. So big up for you, Jeff Steele, with your super chat. Now, I want to come into our next question here, a tough question. Is the 25% bid viable for Sir Jim and the Glazers?
Yeah, it's viable. It depends what way they write the deal up. Like, I think people that come around and say the 25% deal is not viable, it's laughable. It is laughable. There's the 25% deal is totally viable depending on what conditions they put into it. There's example in many different types of businesses like this. Literally what Sir Jim is doing right here is he's realized the valuation the Glazers have in Manchester United is extremely high. It's really high. It's beyond market value at the moment. So logic would dictate is 25% is, I'm coming in at 25% now. I'll be giving you that valuation over the next few years, but in return for that, you have to give me control over aspects of the business. And when you're coming into a business that you could say United, yeah, we're kind of financially stable-ish because of their debt, we're not really. But on the footballing department, which is our bread and butter, we're feeling massively, is you would want to come in and improve that. And he is simply gone, I'm paying you all this money, I'll be paying you a lot more money, but I want control of our football department from day one. And the news today is a clear example, if it is going to be Sir Jim, the news today is a clear example of what power of control he has. The fact that a 25% majority holder has forced out the CEO of that company is a massive indication of what power and control, if it, as I say, if it is Sir Jim, what he
I'm
actually
going to play
has.
the devil's advocate here to say that it's viable 25%. It makes no sense for me from a business perspective. We're going to dive into that a little bit later as well, what that's entitled, like, with taking over the sporting control of it, and how much money you actually, as a minority investor, are allowed to pump in as well. We need to make logic out of that. But we cannot also rule out there is, since there is an NDAs in place, we don't really know, how close do you think this is from a sort of financial perspective, or is it more of a media-driven agenda? I'm talking about over this 12 months we've been covering this, we've seen that these so-called tabloids, without mentioning their names, British tabloids and certain journalists had their own agenda, then be driving these stories, who's in the race, who's leading, who's dropped out, bits and bobs and figures. It's just been second guessing, because at the end of the day, there's NDAs in place, aren't they? Like, or some people were talking about CA, like, confidential agreement, which means that Glazers didn't sign the confidentiality, and Glazers are the one that leaking the story. But you and me, we had a conversation yesterday, and you said, no, both have signed the NDA, right?
Yeah, Rain Grip went like one party to not have an NDA and the other one have, and plus also the theory of the Glazers linking information out to journalists about any of the bids, be it Qatar or Jim, is massive market manipulation, and they can go to prison for up to 15 years. So I really don't think they're going to take that risk of leaking information out to journalists.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I know you know that there, but a lot of people, a lot of people don't understand them. There is a lot of legal complications in this as well.
No, but I always try to present two sides of a story. Like, for right now, it's one-sided of the story. I just want to take it back to Sky that broke that Qatar is out and stuff like that, and then everyone was catching up on the gravy train, like retweeting. I think journalism today is not as comprehensive they used to be 10 years ago, right? You used to do a lot of research, and now on the back of an end of everything, it's like domino effect. People want to be first to break this Pulitzer Prize story, but never has it been that 92 Holding Foundation publicly themselves come out to say we're out. It's been always through this so-called establishment. At the end of the day, they don't need the PR the way I see it, right? All they have to say is that when you saw that story coming out from, let's say, Fabrizio Romano, brilliant in the transfer market, he asked to comment and he said, we cannot comment because of non-disclosure agreement. And by the way, we are out, he said. Right. You don't say that to Fabrizio Romano. But they might play a PR game as well, because at the end of the day, if I cite the Reuters story, they were saying that he simply refuses to bid over his own bid, because he's the only one that's gone in and bid 100% for the club. So needless to say that they have been the most advanced in the bidding process. They have submitted all the documents, all check, done all the, what do you call it? Due diligence and everything. So they ironed, everything is on the table. We've seen that Glazers were begging Nasser Al-Khalifi, who is the president of PSG, and is it QSI or something like that, Qatar Investment Authorities as well, to speak to Sheikh Yassim and the royalties to beg them to come to the table to increase the bid. Now, they have not used the PR as much because they felt confident. But this time around, they said, no, we're not going to be part of bidding any further. I think our bid is done. It's on the table. We know that you need to sell based on the financial reports that came out a couple of weeks ago. If we look at, I'm a financial guy, so I always look at the balance scorecard sheet, right? The debt is 1 billion and the profit that we made is about 600. So what does that tell you, right? What about the debt? What about the FFP? What about the debt needs to be cleared out, right? So what I'm trying to say, the 25% bid is viable, but how are we going to get rid of the FFP? Because certainly there's a white paper done by the Premier League that no club can be taken over on debt or, leverage buyout such as this. So I'm very interested to understand how this has been orchestrated in a certain way.
Well, because this isn't a leverage buyout. A leverage buyout is when you take a loan out to buy an entity and then you place that loan back onto the company. This is not a leverage buyout, so that rule one doesn't apply. The FFP rule, we would actually totally be fine if there was any money from the owners being invested into any part of the club for infrastructure, which was another thing put out by the media. Sir Jim is going to be investing so much money. If he invests 90 million in this season before the end of this year, that actually gives us spending power in the transfer market, because that's been our biggest holdback. We haven't been selling players, so we haven't been balancing the FFP book. Our FFP, our debt, hinders us from spending money. But what's really hindered us in the last 5 years has been the fact that we don't sell players. We keep players on big contracts. We pour money out. We're not bringing money into the club from player sales. So
from that point of view, sorry for interrupting you, mate, but from that point of view, I can only see the reason why, because the Glazers saw the players as an asset to increase the valuation of the club. Hence the reason why they gave them silly contracts and silly wages, because that inflates the overall valuation of the club when you sell it, right?
Yeah. It's, you can sell players, but that you sell players to increase the valuation of the club. That's increasing your revenues. It's not actually. It's a complicated method to use. Sorry, I just seen Jarvis's comment come up there, and I was reading it about the NDA. The NDA, Rain Group. this comes under the rules from the SEC. If you're in a selling process or a strategical review process, the process has to be fair and balanced in all parties. All parties includes the selling side of the party. So for a fair and balanced process, all parties would have to be adhered to the brokerage's NDA. The Glazers will not be able to break the NDA with Rain Group, and the Rain Group won't be able to break the NDA with Glazers. It has to be a mutual agreement. Now, coming to an end of a process, you can get what they call optional waivers of an NDA. So in the NDA, there may be supplements put into the NDA that near the end of the process, if it's been confirmed that it's you and you need to do outside work, bringing new people in, you can actually waive that NDA so you can approach people. We'll just use United as an example. So saying if it's Qatar, Ineos have won, but they need to start approaching the people they want to bring into the team. You need to waive that part of that NDA so you can approach people like Paul Mitchell. You can approach a new CEO and say, look, we're likely to take over Manchester United. Would you like to come on as a director of football? And that person may say, well, how likely are you? You're allowed to waive the NDA in them circumstances to say, well, we'll bring you into the fold. We're getting the club. We want you as our man. That stuff can happen. NDAs are subjective in nature as well. So it depends what they're in. But when it comes to SEC and public companies, it's the NDA is all around for all parties. It's never just one or another.
Yeah. I mean, the next logical step in the business world that I'm living is they need to inform the SEC, the New York Stock Exchange.
Yeah.
And going back to the strategical review or the financial report, which they didn't disclose the progress, but they did disclose the financial figures, which look very, very dire. Although we made profits, we made losses massively. They took another 300 million debt for Santander Bank for the transfer market. That means the one thing only: Glazers are broke. They don't have any money, right? And that's the thing. Both bidder side has looked under that bonnet and to say, you know what? You ain't going nowhere. If you're hoping that within 2026, the US World Cup, that you're going to stick around, no way, because the banks want the money back. We're talking about Bank of America that owns the majority of the debt, the bond. They want that repaid by 2025. Santander Bank wants the money back, 300 million as well, right? So there's got to come a ceiling where you actually maximize your overdraft spending in the credit cards. So that's why I was saying I'll always look at the balanced scorecard sheet. But I want to ask you a question here. How would Ineos get sporting control? And what about the debt, mate?
Well, the debt, if you talk from Qatari side, the Qatari side will use the debt as a way to reduce the price they have to pay for the club. What Sir Jim would do with the 25% is he uses the debt as a way to gain more percentage of the club. So there's two ways you could clear the debt off United's books. There's one way is just saying, I'll pay the debt off, but I'm taking that off the price of the shares I'm giving you. What Sir Jim is most likely like to do is what they call a debt equity swap. So basically what Sir Jim would do, for instance, that Santander credit line debt we're talking about, we're due 60 million of that in June. What Sir Jim basically turns around and says is okay, I'll pay that debt off. You give me a certain percentage of shares in the company, and we call it even. But what that does is that means then Sir Jim at that time, he's paying debt off. Not only is he increasing his shares in the company, but because he's paying that £60 million off, he's technically investing in the company at the same time. Because that 60 million then, that 60 million then stays on United's books, which then means that helps us in spending on infrastructure, players, and our balance sheet, because that goes into that is just one way how you can increase your shareholding. So the same way the Qataris would use the debt as a reason to pay less per share, Sir Jim is using the debt then to increase his shareholding over time. And it also means doing it that way is actually advantageous to the Glazers as well, because getting that debt and diluting their share value, you can claim tax back on that because when you dilute a share and you've used it to pay off debt, you can actually claim tax back when you finally sell that share as a whole. So it actually helps them get more money out of the deal as well. So as I say, two different ways of doing it. That's why I say the 25% way, I can't tell you exactly how it would work, but there's so many different, nobody knows, because there's so many different levers, there's so many different ways you can pull it off.
So I just want to make a disclaimer. Nobody really knows how this is going to be structured, but we are just giving plausible ways from a business perspective, because at the end of the day, they have the best in class legal advisors, business advisors to find the loopholes, to be honest, right?
Yeah,
But
I see
I'm
in the
just
chat, I have to say, Mick, I see in the chat people are saying, what would 60 million do? That is just one of our debts that he is talking about paying off. So rather than clearing that £60 million of debt out, which yes is a good thing, but if you are, it's also a better way of doing it incrementally for both Sir Jim and for the club. Because when he does it that way, it actually means we can take that 60 million off our FFP balance as well. Now you're only allowed to do that so much per year. There's a cap on it, so you can't just turn around and pay the whole debt off.
Yeah.
There's caps
But
on it and stuff like that.
I'm more interested in what you said there. Like, you know, they could have said like, okay, we clear part of that debt and you give us shares in return. But that's just speculation at the end of the day, isn't it? Right?
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
there's
It's
so
just the
many.
way the deal could work.
I believe that majority of the global fan base, they don't want debt, including myself, right? Including yourself as well. So that is the big hard question we need to ask. What about the existing debt, which is about $1 billion at the moment? You know, that's just not going to evaporate in the air. You know, with 25%, you can't simply take over that debt, right? So
You wouldn't take over that debt. It wouldn't be. It would be pointless because.
So basically, we will still have that debt lingering over our shoulders, no matter if they take over the sporting control, right?
Yeah, but as I say, he'd been using that debt then. So anytime them debt payments come up, if he covers them debt payments, he gets then that back in shares. So anytime the club is due to pay any type of debt from our credit lines, I don't think it would work for player transfers because under UEFA rules, it doesn't give any advantage to the club. The club has to pay that off anyway. You can't clear that debt. And any payments then towards minus interest towards our leverage debts, that will be basically paid by Sir Jim, and then he gets a certain percentage of shares. It won't be until Sir Jim gets a majority control of the club. Once he hits that majority control of the club, the debt clause clicks in. We have a debt clause in our bonds that say if there's ever a change of control, our debt needs cleared off the company's books. It needs either refinanced or paid off.
You see, this as a fan, this is me speaking a fan, this is where I have a problem with. You know, this is where I can't see the forest from the trees, you know, because I can't see how you can come in to on 25%. Like me, I'm coming to buy your house as its current state. I said, Paul, I'm going to buy your house. I'm going to give you 25%. And you're going to lease me out this house. And potentially in that clause, in the contract clause, we're going to say within the 3 years, I'm going to own 100% of your house. But in the interim, I'm going to put in a theme park in your backyard. I'm going to put in a jacuzzi in your, you know, Swarovski crystal chandeliers and everything. But you, at the end of the day, you say, well, it doesn't really bother me. I just want my full sale, you know, my full evaluation price. So I don't see this make any sense other than...
Well, you mentioned it there, Mick. You've mentioned the word, I don't see my full valuation. Now, the problem is the cash in hand being offered by the other group. The only way this has come around is if they haven't offered the cash to the valuation. Sir Jim's 25% will give them their valuation 3 or 4 years. This is, I know a lot of people say it doesn't make sense. This is a very simple term in business. It's called an earn.
What I want to come to from a global fan base perspective, this speculative 1.4, 1.5 billion payment ain't going to the club.
No, it won't. That's why he'll put in his own
money. How is
this
going to help? So how, excuse me for being blunt, how is this going to help the club?
Well, the 25% wouldn't help the club. It's the exact same way if Sheikh Hussein bought the club over and the 5 billion that he'd pay for the club wouldn't go to the club. The 25% stake is him putting his payment down to get control of sporting aspects. Very easy legal agreement. I buy 25% of this business off you. I give you this money. I'm going to buying further percentages off you. But the terms of this is I get to run the sporting aspect of the business. It happens quite a lot in businesses. The
All
debt,
I can see... I'm sorry. Yeah, the debt, yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
the debt then will be used as another mechanism to, because the Glazers have to pay it off. The debt will also be used as another mechanism to gain up more of a share percentage. Just as Jarvis was saying here, why the club don't refinance the debt straight away, and it's the same reason why Sir Jim won't do it even under 25%, is because if you go to refinance that debt early before the bonds mature, which isn't until 2027, you have to pay a massive premium on top of buying the debt back off. So
the thing is,
the 25%, the problem why people don't see the 25% is because you don't see the deal. You can't see the deal yet. When you see the deal, when you see how it's structured, how it's layered out, that's when you'll start to understand it. But as I say, in other businesses, this happened before. There was a there was a consultancy business a few years ago. They bought manufacturing. They were a manufacturer consultancy group. They then went into the actual base manufacturing, couldn't run that part of the business. So they end up selling 25, I think it was 35% of that business. And the people that came in took over the running of the factories, and they kept to the consultancy part of the business. It happens all the time. It's new in football because you don't generally get these type of situations. When somebody sells a football club, they sell a football club. You don't usually get this. Manchester United is a different beast. It's very badly run, very badly operated, but it has the potential to make a valuation at a very, very, very high level. And the problem is there's only a few groups in the world that can come in and pay that money. And the problem is if you don't have a group that's willing to pay that money, you then have to go down with a staged takeover.
I mean, I must say that this is a very complicated structure deal. I've never seen anything like it before. And arguably to say that the bottleneck has been Ineos. They've been asked to restructure from 69 to 51 to 25. While 92 Holding Foundation has always been 100% sell, including clearing the Glazers debt. You know, they walk away with cash in the pockets, all of them. And for me, that makes the most sense, right? Nobody really knows.
It does if the valuation matches, but the valuation doesn't match. This is the problem.
Nobody really knows what the valuation is, really what's been put down on the table. It's just been speculative news, right? But what I'm trying to say here, I'm going to throw back to Sir Jim Rattcliffe's 25% Ineos. It is a lot of high risk and rewards. This is what if within 3 years this will be valued at this price, because they just looked at the projections to say, we predict that by 2027 your club is going to be worth 10 billion with the TV rights, with the body cams and all that. That is just assumption, you know. In the current financial state where we are right now with the inflation rates, you know, we're talking about recessions, we're talking about the fall of, you know, the Fed and the dollar values decrumpling, the de-dollarization and stuff like that. It's so unpredictable what the future is going to be like right now. So it is high risk, and he's been talking to JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs and stuff like that for finance. It's been widely reported as well. But I want to know, in the short run, in the short term, let's say, how will this benefit Manchester United? And in the long run, how would this be for the fans? Because that's the question that we want to know. We want to know about the manifesto. And so far, we don't know. And that's what makes me angry and makes me doubt this is going to work, right? Because I'm asking the hard question regarding the debt. I'm asking the hard question, where's this money coming from? So basically, nothing is really changing more than divide and conquer again to say, yes, we're putting out the fillers that you might get a new CEO, a new director of football, a new performance manager, but that's pretty much it, what a 25% can do, right? Or how does it work?
The reason why you don't get a manifesto yet is because generally the funding that Sir Jim will be putting into the club, he will also be using to buy shares. That's market sensitive information, so that won't be released until the deal comes in. That kind of process, you won't get the full thing because there'll be certain caps and everything on it. Short term, if Sir Jim comes in and he pits, I think it was 300 million that was reported in dollars. He pits 90 million of that and says, I'm going to, 90 million would redo United's roof, basically. 90 million would do the roof. If he puts that 90 million in, that 90 million then can be taken off our FFP balance. That then allows us to spend more money in the transfer market because you've put
With what
because
money? I mean, I'm wondering with what money?
his
Because
own money, Sir Jim's own money.
He's allowed
Sir
to do
Jim's
that.
own.
He's allowed to do that.
That's what I'm saying. He can do because he's buying the company. He's going to be a 20% owner in Manchester United. He's over that 20% mark. He's technically classed as an owner under Premier League rules. So that gives him the ability then to put secured investment into the club. So if he puts 90 million into the club, that's kind of then a secured investment that comes off your FFP balance. So then if we totally break to even before he put that money in United's books, then he puts that 90 million in and we invest into the roof and infrastructure. That actually gives us wiggle room to spend more money. It's the way the FFP works. Look at City's financials. City do it all the time. If you look at City's financials, the big thing is since they've been taking over, the company has released shares that have totaled 1.4 billion shares they've released in the company, and that's how they constantly keep reinvesting into the company. It's just a mechanism an owner can use.
Excuse me for being blunt. I'm just conscious about time, but that leads me to two lead questions. Again, you said that he's allowed to put in some form of money, but what I want to know that doesn't really compute in my brain. And I'm a thinker, always thinking, even if you invest 25%, you're paying off the Glazers, you're giving them 1.4, 1.5 billion, but that's not going to clear any debt or anything to the club. They are promising that you're not going to be a part of the commercial aspect of the business, which is the most lucrative, but we're going to give you the football operational side of it. And at the end of the day, you are not a mug. You're Ineos. You're Sir Jim Rattcliffe. You have, Brailsworth and all that. How are you going to make profit? Because at the end of the day, nobody's just going to invest some money without, demanding some profits out of it.
Well, profits are control. This isn't an upstart 40-year-old billionaire. We're talking about he made a statement quite clear, actually, not directly about Manchester United back in the video and the Ineos release for their anniversary. These guys have made their money. They've been in the business for years. Yeah. What they want is to leave a legacy. And you generally find this with most big billionaires. They end up just throwing money at stupid shit that doesn't make business sense because they want to leave a mark. They want to leave a legacy. You've ran Ineos. It's a big company. It's an oil company. But that's not really a leaving a mark because your family takes that over. Your company's not your mark. It's the same. It's the exact way how Joel and Avram convinced Malcolm to buy Manchester United. They convinced him, you buy Manchester United, you own Manchester United. That is your legacy. It's the same way. The reason why Malcolm had no interest to go into United, he was convinced by his sons and the way they used that whole thing is it's a legacy thing. A lot of billionaire owners do stupid stuff or build big buildings or buy, massive companies that are totally out of their whole remit of business as a legacy thing. But when it comes to money, Sir Jim has enough personal wealth to put in.
So basically this is him saying that I'm desperate to get a piece of a Premier League club, what he stated before, He said that before. We want to be philanthropists. We want to make a legacy, right? At the end of the day, this doesn't compute either with me. I'm sorry for asking the question because I'm looking at the long-term project of Manchester United. What I'm trying to say is that we've seen that they have been trying to sort of do that divide and conquer, to forget about the debt, to forget that Glazer will still might remain, to give us a little bit of a positives to say, somebody was just calling me on WhatsApp here, by the way, sorry, to say, we will give you a sporting director, we will give you a new CEO, and we will keep still robbing you in the background. People smell the coffee. I don't see that as a long-term vision. I want to know from a long-term perspective, what does this entitle? 25%. Will he be given the opportunity to buy the whole club within 3 years? Because what we do on this channel, Paul, is always been GlazersOut full sale only, right? I'm not going to settle for 25% unless I know exactly what this entitles. And this is part of this debate what we're having.
Yeah, I like this comment here, and I've been waiting for somebody to bring this up. Is it a vanity product for Sir Jim? Is that going to be positive for United fans? Chelsea was a vanity project for Abramovich. Man City is a vanity project for Dhabi Dhabi Group. Newcastle is a vanity project for Saudis. PSG is a vanity project for QIA. When you have a billionaire that's wanting to use your thing as a vanity project, that means they're going to throw money at it to make it the best it can be. A vanity project for a billionaire. If somebody says to me, oh, we've got a billionaire wants to come into our business and make it their vanity project, I'm just thinking he is going to throw money at this to make this the best it can be. So if it is a vanity project, that's good news for United. But as I say, no, and the other guys, right, nobody knows what's going to happen until we see the documents. But I think when you're talking about money on the table compared to what Sir Jim's offering, if it was just down to money on the table and they hit a valuation mark that the Glazers were happy with, this deal would have been done about 4 or 5 months ago. Right, it would have been done.
I think we got to sit ourselves on a barber chair because the comments are covering us. So we got to come up a little bit higher. Yeah. If you stretch yourself a little bit, Paul,
I'll just stretch up.
Big up Jeff Steele for coming in a question. The absolute truth, nobody really knows anything. And the most important aspect of all, this is the money-hungry Glazers who only want what's best for them. And we want what's best for the fan base and the club. You know, that's the reason why we're having this podcast, right? We want to understand, you know, what is this? For me, all I keep saying is they're trying to sort of prop up for the past weeks to bigging up this 25% for us to forget about everything, to stop protesting and go with the bandwagon. I call it the gravy train, to say, oh, it's going to be all right. But is it? Is it enough? That's the thing. Okay, what they're saying that you're going to appoint this Brailsford, which is a change management expert of sport optimization. We've seen his track CV. We're going to get the best-in-class football director. We're going to get the best-in-class CEO. Yes, this is something that we've been missing for 10 years, 100%. And this is why I believe that we've been failing miserable, because the apparatus above the manager haven't had the same vision. They only wanted to make money. Well, the managers come in to say, we want to win. But if it's not marrying, of course, it's going to clash. And then 18 months, we sack the manager and off we go again, the merry-go-round hamster wheel. So I think that they are putting out those fillers to sort of get the fans excited. But really, do we really know, based on what we discussed about confidentiality, you know, it's been a lot of spin, you know, and that's why I want to know, can they make us successful with this model, right? I'm looking at Ten Hag's previous model, Paul, when he worked at Ajax. They had that Bermuda Triangle, which I called, there was the connection between Mark Overmars and the CEO, Edwin van der Sar. They always decided together about the transfer market and the direction where they want to take Ajax, right? There was a triangle. And I can see the similar operational model here, right? Sorry, we need to pump us up here.
I can't pump my feet up any higher.
All right. Mark, can we remove, moderator, can we remove this comment? So
No, it's okay. I'm fine here now. I can sit like this for another 10 minutes.
So the question is this enough for the short term? Yes. But for the long term?
For long term, yes, as well, because this is always the thing, and it's the thing that's really baffled me, the way people talk about this. The Glazers are still involved, so we're Sir Jim get the money. Guys, if this is going to be a staged takeover, which is what a lot of things are pointing to, the fact that he's willing to put money in, he's overpaying for the 25%. Most people in business, I think even the guy from Lindsay Trade said that the speculation he has on his side, if it will go to a full takeover, he just doesn't know the details yet, but that's what his assumption is. The Glazers aren't going to care what money Manchester United spend. They're not going to give a damn.
No,
they
don't care.
Their dividends, they've record dividends they've ever took out is 40 million. If this is a stage takeover, the more successful Manchester United is, the more our revenues go. They'll have a base price. They'll have a base price of Sir Jim per share. That share then will be affected by a percentage multiplier every time he goes to buy shares. And generally what they use is revenue as that percentage multiplier. So if revenues are X, you get X% more. That, even on its base price that the Glazers will be being paid by Sir Jim, is a hell of a lot more money than they would ever pull out in dividends in 10 years. It's taken them 10 years to pull out something like, I think it's only £550 million in dividends, because the rest of the money they pulled out of the club has been through share sales. So in actual dividends payments, it's taken them 10 years. Sir Jim will probably, for the next 3 or 4 years, be paying them close to £600 million for their shares each year till he buys out their total holdings. That's where the money comes in. So making him in charge of the football decisions, you can be in charge of the commercial side, but your main expense and expenditure come from the football side. If he has proper control over that, it's good news for us. The Glazers will no longer care. They'll probably sit away in Tampa Bay and go, well, Sir Jim's doing it all. I don't need to go into the office today. They won't care. They haven't cared in years. They did it with Ed Woodward. They let Ed Woodward run our club into the ground.
By the way,
Edward
Woodward will still get paid out by the sale.
Yeah, he's up at
0.05%.
He's looking, if his shares get bought out, he's looking at about, I think about £80 million he gets. But as I say, the Glazers have done it before. They allowed Woodward to run wild with the finances at Manchester United for years, with buying players like Paul Pogba for 80 million, Harry Maguire for 80 million. You know, they're just doing the exact same, except for there's a key difference between what they'll be giving to Sir Jim and what they'll be giving with Woodward. And the key difference is Sir Jim will be paying them money for the privilege to run that department.
Right.
And again, as somebody said, it all comes down to how much the Glazers get at the end of it. And that's just the end of it all. Doesn't matter if we understand how it works or the intricacies of the details. All that would really matter is, do the Glazers get what they want, which is a club that's valued over £6 billion?
That is the hotometer, which we know is pretty much the Glazeronomics. They only care about the Benjamins in the bank account. I want to engage with the VR room, the chat room as well. I want to ask you guys a question, and I want to think about it. I want you to think about it and post your answer in the chat room. Can Ineos make United successful in the long term? No matter what, people, give us your comments, because we are about coming to your Q&A questions as well. No matter who takes over the club, we all wanted the Glazers to leave the club. It's been 18 years. You know, 25% that might leave to 100 or 92 Holding Foundation. Nobody really knows what is the status, but we are coming to the end of the strategical review, Paul. It's been 1 year since they announced it, you know, through Sky, through, was it Mark Killian that did the interview with Avram Glazer? You know, the famous, like, Mr. Glazer, like, and he said a happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Glazers don't communicate, but, we've been following this very closely from the day one that it came out, and we've been doing over 200 podcasts on that regarding this. Like, it is my understanding that bids are coming in. Ineos has been restructuring. They've been given the time to restructure, which led to believe that their bid was blown out of the water, which led to believe that 92 Holding Foundation thought they had the only exclusivity. They are leading the race. But now it's coming down to, it's a high-stake game of poker, the way I see it. It's a billionaires game's poker, right? The science has been there, right? From a business perspective, they're given the time to, okay, we are intrigued. Show us what you can do. So they've been restructuring from 69, 50, 51 to 25. Well, at the same time, Qatar has always had their bid on the table, ironed out, to say. So we're coming to the end of the review, and the way I see it is both bidders, or whoever is part of this bidding process, is waiting for feedback. And the announcement, by the looks of it, is going to be announced very soon, Paul. The signs are there in terms of getting rid of the personnel. So whoever comes in wants their own personnel in. If it's 92 Holding Foundation, they have their CEO. They might look at the same CEO. They might look at the same director of football, which is Paul Mitchell, best in class, right? But at this moment, nobody really knows, and it's leading towards Sir Jim Rattcliffe, Sir Jim Rattcliffe, Sir Jim Rattcliffe. On the other hand, Qatar has not really conceded publicly, right? This is what baffles me, right? It's been the British media, it's been reporting they're out, right?
But it's not just been the British media, it's been the financial media. Two completely different areas of media. You have British sporting media, which is the worst type of journalism I've ever seen. But when you have Financial Times mention it in articles, you have Reuters mention it in articles, you have Bloomberg mention it in articles, the Wall Street Journal mention it in articles, and the Washington Post as well have mentioned it in articles. It's kind of very, very hard to ignore. And I do like this comment that just came up. If you go back to that other comment there that came up, this is a perfect one. Financial success for the United is quite literally, it's taken City 115 charges and that's selling a bunch of players to beat us in a financial race. It's the football pitch needs to get right. If it's Qatar, if it's Sir Jim, as long as the right football people are put in place in this club,
100%.
And a little bit of investments put in to kickstart our renovations of Old Trafford, getting Carrington up to scratch and everything like that, United will be successful. We are still a powerhouse when it comes to financial gains. We've just held back.
Commercially, yes. Commercially, we are powerhouse.
Commercially. It just the best. You know what the best owner for Manchester United is, guys, and it's not a sugar daddy. It's not Sir Jim. The best owner is the owner that comes in, puts the people in the right place, and then sits back and goes, I don't need to get involved. The football's going well. We're winning Champions League. We're winning Premier Leagues. The club is in financial trouble. I could sit here with my Long Island iced tea and let the football people deal with the business. That is the best owner we need. Just somebody to come in, put the right people in place and let them run it. Tottenham's as an example. They're not as successful as us, but John Lewis has left Daniel Levy in charge of Tottenham. And to be fair, he has financial constraints, but he's managed to build them a state-of-the-art stadium in the middle of London while still making them contenders for top four football. If you had said that to Tottenham fans 10 years ago, they would have laughed at you. So it's an example of an owner that allows the business to run. It's just Tottenham just don't generate as much as us.
As a fan, I hear what you're saying. As a fan, I want what's best for the club. Always been like this. And I've been part of this protest. I've been, part of the 1958, been covering this live protests. It's like, just been keeping it going, keeping the fight going. And I'm not giving up until I have a final definition answer. Keep my powder dry. But I must admit that I got so tired and complacent of the whole thing. And as a human being, your emotions are not made of steel, right? It gets too much. So just taking my foot off the pedal and just say, come what may, as long as we become successful again, as long as we start playing the game of football the United of the old, even if with the new identity that we start winning trophies. We haven't won a Premier League for 11 years. We haven't won a Champions League for 11 years, right? It's been hamster wheel, and I want that, the curse to be broken. So, guys, forever who's trying to clip me to say, give up on Qatar. The reason why I went with Qatar is because that was the closest to what I wanted and what most of the fans wanted. No matter, your moral beliefs of human rights issues or greenwashing, sports washing, all that stuff. We've seen that in the media, but we deserve something better. We deserve success. We deserve the tender love and care that we've been abused. We've been living in an abusive relationship with the Glazers for 18 years, and that has been this channel's fight. Nothing else, It's been one stages where Qatar were the only ones, and now it seems like, it's just now Ineos the only ones. We don't know as of yet, people. It ain't over.
Yeah, and so I don't get clipped. And so I don't get clipped. When I say be a bit like Spurs, I don't mean be as successful as Spurs. What Spurs did is they actually made the right manager appointments and stuff like that. But the problem Spurs has is they didn't have the financial backup to give Conte, to give Mourinho that ability to do the job he was doing. You look at Mourinho's time at United, Mourinho was building a successful team. But what happened? The Glazers tightened the purse string and said, no, you're not getting the players you want. And then Mourinho's team fell apart. Same thing happened with Conte at Spurs. He was building something, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, we can't sign you these players. I'm talking. There's a difference. There's a difference between, like, you're talking about Liverpool levels of ownership ability but with massive amounts of revenues to back that ownerability up. The reason why the Liverpool team slowed down to a halt was because they weren't able to reinvest more money. They didn't get enough money and income coming in to reinvest into players. United have always had money to spend on players. It's just we've spent it badly. We've just wasted it, billions of pounds. But at the end of the day, the Glazers need to go win away, and you need to get somebody in that's, as I say, going to put football first, somebody that puts the right people in place, and as I say, sits back, relax, and watch United's win things, which is what I want to do on a Saturday.
What's most disturbing is the whole shadow bidding process with Rainy Group and keeping people just second guessing, including the media, and it's been spinning us dizzy. So we have been here, to provide you with this, how do I say, alternatives, Paul? Like, we've been doing numerous podcasts trying to break down the finance. I believe in finance. I follow the financial curves and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's been a high stake poker game, where it's been like, who blinks first. We are talking about billionaire Squid Games, yeah? It's a world that we don't understand. There's a level of richness, like in that pyramid, right? And on the top of that pyramid, you have the royals, the sheikhs, from Abu Dhabi, from Qatar, from Saudi Arabia. You have the Rothschilds, you have the, BlackRock group. These are the one on the top of their food chains. They don't speak to the poor billionaires that's at the bottom, like the Glazers. That's why you saw Glazers begging Nasser Al-Khalifi to come talk to us, come increase that bid, right? We saw in the World Cup, the Glazers personally went down to pimp up to the sale of the club. They didn't go down there to watch football because they don't understand football. They went down for business. They went down to sell themselves to the royal families of Saudi, UAE, everyone, right? To get that high price evaluation, what they always wanted. Because according to my opinion, they designed the shadow bidding process only to get a big shark in. So for me, it doesn't really make sense now, after going through this process with Rain Group, where they included like, hedge funds on minority investors, 25% that dropped out. And even to see now in the news that Leon Cooperman has gone into bought about 100, I think it was 1 million shares.
And he put 1 million shares. He sees that as a quick profit flip.
These are sharks. These are billionaire sharks. They're playing high stake poker. At the end of the day,
for his investment fund, but I'm just going to comment because you mentioned his investment fund, guys. 16.6 million is like him going into a cash machine like we do, or bookies, and putting 20 quid in a roulette machine. That's literally what he's done. Yeah. He hasn't done anything that he doesn't do with 15 other businesses in the different world. He sees $18 a share for Manchester United, even if it's a Sir Jim and he buys 12.5% of the A-class shareholding, he's still going to make money out of that deal because of the way the shares are sold.
No.
So I wouldn't even read into that.
I'm just going to finish off my point there with the Billionaires Club, because at the end of the day, whoever controls the information stake, like, the media is paying off. They've certainly been paying off the PR, the media as mouthpieces. Basically, it's all coming down in divide and conquer, the way I see it. If I control your mind with this certain information, you read the headlines, it's the truth, right? But nobody really knows the truth. And the closest to the truth that you come to today, which is groundbreaking, according to my opinion, is through a club statement that Richard Arnold is stepping down. And this, what I'm trying to say, where I'm keeping my powder dry, media, the sports journalist apparatus can paint the pictures, Sir Ineos, Sir Jim Rattcliffe and stuff like that. But when it really comes down to the truth, will come through the club statement. It will come to the Rain Group advising, or through when the Glazers has made up their mind. So in business, always keep your powder dry and ain't over to the fat lady sings, right? So what we've seen is a lot of speculations on this channel. We've been providing also speculations, Paul, to be honest, but from an educational platform to say that what if this, what if that? We're looking at the financial figures, what does this entitle? What about the 25%? What about the Class A, Class B shares? What about the legal litigations from Lindsay Train and all that stuff? And this is still questions that we need to ask, Paul. What about the minority investors like Lindsay Train, like Bowen Group, like Areas? How
they don't matter a penny. they don't matter. This is another misconstrued. The legal agreement, the area that they mattered was with the original Sir Jim deal because they weren't included into it. So that's automatically breaking our rules of incorporation. It says if the Glazers are doing a strategic review, that's counted as they're reviewing the corporation, the business. So the minorities investors have to share in the profits of that. So the original Sir Jim deal would allow them to legally challenge. Now, if this is the 25% deal and he's saying, I'm going to buy 25% of the 12.5% of the A-class shares, the same percentage I'm buying of the club from the Glazers, they have no legal precedence. They can vote to opt in for it or they can vote to opt out for it, but they're not going to stop that deal. There's no way. They have no power. They have no control. And this is why investors get very frustrated when they deal with clubs that have a dual class voting system, where the guys that own the bigger voting shares basically tell you what to do. And this is the problem with it.
No, fair enough. I think we're running out of time, people. There's been some brilliant questions here. Sorry if we didn't bring all of you up. What I want to
answer this one quickly here with with Arnold.
Bossage is one of our regulars to say if Arnold's out, they need somebody to keep doing his job to be meantime. Yeah, the interim just won't make any groundbreaking decisions until the new guy comes in. Calm down. 100%.
Yeah, that's literally why they've appointed Patrick Stewart, because he will just keep everything running in a legal sense. He won't be making any decisions. He is there to sit in his captain's chair and goes, beam me up, Scotty. That's all he's doing.
Yeah, he's gonna go like, beam me up, Scotty. Beam me up, Joel. Beam me up, Joel.
Basically, yeah.
That's a big up to all of you. Like, at the end of the day, it's your truth. It's your perception what matters, right? But never lose the perception that GlazersOut full sail only, right? Don't get this media fool you to drag you to one direction, to accept the mediocre. You got to ask the right questions. You got to be tough on this. And even if it's 92 Holding Foundation or, Ineos or let's say Tesla buys us, we need to ask the questions. What about our fan engagement? What about the debt? What about making us great again? Is this going to be enough? And I think that's been the main purpose of today's podcast, Paul. The way I wanted to sort of see, because it's our duty to sort of compare the apples to apples, to scrutinize each bidder, because at the end of the day, it's our club and we want our club back. We want to come back to the glory days. And I simply don't see with this 25%, what we discussed today, it's not enough. If the 1.5 billion is going directly into the Glazers' pocket and he's going to invest like 60 odd million or 300 million to some sort of infrastructure, what's been covered, he ain't going to even cover the liquid paint.
That's a starting investment. That's just his starting level. I don't think that is just that whole money you're talking about there. That is going to be used to gain more shares. That 300 million, his real investment won't come until he gets control of the club. Then that's when he kicks in his own investment. He's not stupid. Every businessman in the world will tell you United need investment. He's going to invest.
Yeah.
And I have a funny feeling he'll use his own money for it because he's got a crap ton of that and he's not doing anything with it.
I'm gonna sort of hit the pause button here and go back to the Sun. Neil Custis.
Yeah.
He was the one to say to everyone, expect it to be announced in November. Remember? And everyone was saying, don't trust the Sun. Don't trust the Sun. But he said something about something very interesting there as well. He said about 92 Holding Foundation.
Yeah, and then they also backtracked in that story when the 25% came out, and he goes, everybody inside Old Trafford is shocked because they thought it would be Qatar, and now they're being told it's going to be Sir Jim. So he's already backtracked on himself. He's already updated that article and said, yeah, I've talked to people inside Manchester United, and they're shocked now that it's going to be Sir Jim instead of Qatar. So this is what I mean. These type of journalists, I look what they say and I judge it, because some of them even... when it comes to the Sun, when it comes to the Athletic, even for Bitsu in some cases, it's a rabbit hole you can go down with.
Some people that don't know me, I'm very, very, laid back in a way, but I criticize everything I read I read between the lines because that's my job to do as well, right? So during the sales process, I've been looking at every single article, every single journalist, to question the motive. Are you a United fan? Or are you just in it for your own clickbait? Because at the end of the day, whoever breaks it wins the Pulitzer Prize. It's the biggest scoop of the century. There's a bigger club in the world. As soon as you just mention Manchester United, how much engagement do you get? Even, Richard Arnold came out to say, like, yeah, the social engagement is good. We make a lot of clicks, and certainly everyone has been benefiting from this gravy train. But the one that's losing out, guess who?
Yep.
You and me as fans. And we are the gullible ones with the, emotions. So if we can provide you with a motion sickness pill,
oh, wow. Well, if you want to talk about, we just mentioned the Athletics, so a quick update here before we go, because I actually need to leave, from Samuel Luckhurst. Sir David Bradford. Yeah, I'm going to say it because it's funny as hell. It's funny as hell because I do not believe this story firmest. I do not. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I mean when people are being essential media, and why not to believe. But Samuel Luckhurst apparently said that David Balsford has been visiting Man United's training complex ahead of Ineos Group's pennant investment in the club. He's had trips in recent weeks. Balford's driven in the premise in a blacked out vehicle. I'll tell you this for a fact. There's not going to be any involvement with Ineos in the running of Manchester United until the SEC documents have been signed, sealed, and confirmed, because they do not allow that. They can get fined for that. They can have fines from the SEC from an outside force interfering with a publicly limited company without declaring it. This is what I'm talking about, the sensational media. They hear the story about Arnold today and they run wild with it. This is what I'm talking about, the media not to listen to.
Some of them are just not, they are paid by the Glazers to be the Glazer, mouthpieces. And some of them are sponsored by some think tank organizations against human rights. And you know who I'm talking about, fella, chief correspondent of The Independent has been just talking gash and stuff like that. It's been just nothing but, it's really pissing me off. Like, I keep saying that, do expect, meatballs with a chance of showers. You know what I mean? Because Manchester United is not playing football, and there's 2 weeks of making shit up because they have editorials to get to sell clicks, and that's what it is, people. I don't like.
I need to go, mate. I need to go,
mate. All right, guys. Thank you so much for coming in, guys. To round up everything before we leave, Paul, thank you again so much for coming in. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and we will definitely have you more on footballing matters as well, Paul. Let's just
I hope we go back to football, please. Can we go back to football?
Everyone is happy to see you here, and you always have a place here. You know what I mean? So, yeah, we're looking forward to have you more on talking football in a way. Guys, smash a like for Paul as well. To round up what we've been talking about, Paul, is the plausible, the big breaking news is that, we are getting rid of the old guard to get in new people. That means that a takeover is about imminent. We talked about the hypothetical. It might be Ineos, it might be whoever takes over. They will always do the restructure, and this is my point, what I want to come to. No matter who it is, they will always line up their own people. So rest assured, they already line up in advance when they submitted the bid, the director's test, the fitness test. They already gone down and spoke to people like, hey, do you want to, if I win the bid, do you want to be the director of football? Do you want to be the CEO? It's always lined up. So when they get their bid, they're ready to rock and roll. Anyway, guys, big up for all of you for coming in. Thank you. Hit the likes up. There's 81 likes. Everyone that made to this stream, please tell others about the channel. Please hit the like button, hit the notification. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. It definitely helps us to make content like this. And Paul White, as per usual, thank you for coming in, people. Peace, love, Glazers out, full says only, bankers out, green and gold until we're sold. Thank you for coming in, Paul, and have a lovely day. Cheers.
See you later, guys.
Bye for now. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching Mufc Realist TV. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on the socials.